And yes, before you ask, I am sitting by the bar because if I have to dive into Reddit for you, I need to be within arm's reach of a drink. It's 5 p.m. somewhere, as they say. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another video. Today we'll be diving into the weird and wonderful world that is Reddit's Am I the Asshole subreddit, and hopefully answer the question, should you date a single dad? Before we dive into today's topic, if you're new here, my name is Tanya and I'm a family lawyer, mediator, and on this channel I like to discuss all things relationship related, from dating to divorce. If that sounds like something you would like, please make sure you're subscribed, you ring the bell, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, let's just dive in because I've found a couple of Reddit stories, and I appreciate that some of these may not be true or that they're obviously just one person's side of the story, but I do believe that these two stories reflect what I often see in reality in terms of what happens when young, single, child-free women date single dads. Now, just to preface, I'm not here to bash on single dads or to say that they're terrible people and that they're totally undateable, but I am here to highlight some of the potential pitfalls, particularly if you as a woman do not have children yourself, but even when you do, okay, that come along with dating men who have children. It's not so much that you shouldn't date them, but that you shouldn't go in naive and that you should know what you're getting yourself into should you choose to date them. So let's get into the stories. The first one is titled, Am I the A-hole for walking away from my ex's kid after he begged me to help raise her? This person writes, I, 21 female, dated my ex, 27 male, for almost 2 years. He had full custody of his daughter, now 5, because her mom walked out when she was a baby. When we started dating, I made it clear that I wasn't ready to take on a mom role. I told him I do want kids one day, but not while I'm still figuring out my own life. He said he understood. Spoiler, he didn't. So a couple of things I want to highlight there. Straight off the bat, you have an alarming age gap considering the woman's age. Now, I'm not against age gaps full stop, but I am always concerned when I see a woman who is in her sort of late teens, like 18, 19, quote unquote, technically an adult, but in my opinion, still a child. And no offense to the 18, 19-year-olds out there, but it's true, okay? As I was saying, I'm always concerned when I see women at that very sort of young age, even like 20, 21. But in this case, if they were dating for 2 years, it means that she was 19, dating men in their sort of late 20s. So any sort of age gap around sort of more than a couple of years, is always a red flag for me, or at the very least, an orange flag. And in this case, you have a man who was 25, already had a child, and already seems to have not been able to work things out with the mom. So clearly I'd be questioning his life choices there, but that's another discussion for another day. The point is that she was clearly very naive going into this relationship thinking, I don't want to be a mom, but I'm going to date a man with a child who has his young child full time. So the first takeaway here is if you're not ready to be a mom and you do not want to be a mom, then do not date a man who has a child. Let's move on with the story. At first, I was just, quote unquote, dad's girlfriend. But that quickly turned into bedtime routines, school pickups, packing lunches, and being the emotional support system for both of them. I love that little girl. She's smart, kind, and so innocent, but I never got to choose this. Now, again, I want to just interject here. When she says she didn't choose this, understand that when you're dating a single dad who has a child, you are choosing that. That is what you are choosing. And that is why I'm making this video. If you do not want to choose it, then do not date them. And while I understand that she expressed that she was not interested in playing mommy, at the end of the day, understand that the most likely outcome when you have a man and a young child is that somehow you will become a de facto mommy. I don't know what it is, but there's something about men and women who, when there is a child around, they seem to revert to gender roles. Not all the time, but that's the most likely outcome. So just your presence alone will somehow create a situation where you are going to end up in that default mommy role. I didn't make the rules. I'm just telling it like it is. So the safest thing is to go in assuming that that will be the case. And if you do not want it to be the case, then do not proceed further. Stop, run in the other direction. Moving on, it got to the point where he stopped trying. He'd drop her off with me for entire weekends while he went out. If I said anything, I was selfish, immature, or not woman enough to handle real life. He weaponized the fact that his daughter saw me as mom and guilt-tripped me constantly for wanting space. So I left. First of all, golf claps. Snaps for that, okay? Let's give her props for recognizing that the situation was untenable for her, wasn't what she wanted, and for walking away. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. She goes on to say, I didn't ghost them, but I blocked him after he called me heartless and accused me of traumatizing a child. Mutual friends say his daughter still asks about me and it breaks my heart. But I couldn't stay in a situation that was destroying me just to protect someone else's child from a man who chose to be her father but expected me to do the work. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for walking away from a child I never chose, even if I loved her because I knew I wasn't ready to be a mom yet? And to that I say absolutely not, okay? Absolutely not. She is not the a-hole here, okay? He is, because she is not the one who traumatized the child. He is her father, and he is the one who traumatized her by bringing a woman into her life and allowing her to bond with this woman, knowing that the woman very clearly expressed to him that she did not want to be a mom, that she did not want to play that role, and he has forced her into that role through guilt and manipulation. That is not a healthy situation for a child, and he did it 100% for selfish reasons because he is a young man and basically he probably didn't want to be a solo dad. If you ask that man when he first conceived this child, if he wanted to be a dad, if it meant that he would have his child 100% and the mom would not be in the picture at all, he probably would have said no thank you, I'll pass on that. But unfortunately, that's just what happens when you have kids. Usually it's what happens to the mom, but in this case, it's what happened to him. And now he is looking for a mommy replacement to take on that role so that he can go on with his life as a young single man. And unfortunately, that is a pattern of behavior that I have seen many times play out. Because in our society, we still assume that women are going to be the default parents. And as I said, 9 times out of 10, if a parent is leaving and abandoning their child, it's the dad who's doing it, not the mom. It's actually very unusual for us to see moms walk away from very young children and just leave them with their dad 100%. Usually when that happens, it's because of dire circumstances like serious medical issues or even death. And so men are still in some ways expecting women to stick around, expecting women to do the work, to do at least their share, if not more than their share. And so when they are left in a situation where they have the child 100%, often they are ill-equipped and unprepared to take on that role. And almost like a survival thing will kick in and they will look for the closest woman that they can find who is willing to take the child and help them with their child. If you do not want to be that woman, then steer clear of those men. And that is all I have to say about that. This one is titled, Am I the a-hole for expecting my husband to be home every night that we have his kids, my stepkids, at home? I think you can see where this is going already. Let's get into it. The person writes, my husband has 2 kids from his previous marriage, both boys, 12 and 14. They are sweet kids, but they're teenage boys. They're wild, they tend to get into fights, they're messy, and listening is not their best life skill at this stage of brain development. I like that she's so kind in her description of them. Like, it's not their fault, it's their brain development. Sure. I do not have biological kids of my own. I want to highlight that part because, again, I'm here focusing on child-free women dating single dads. I met these kids when we started dating about 4 years ago, and we've all lived together for about 2.5 years. Long story, but we moved last summer about 60 miles from our old home. The move was because the boys' bio mom got engaged to a guy who lived in a different part of the state. To avoid the kids bearing the brunt of the commute, we agreed to move. My husband still commutes to work, and I work from home full time. Now, right away, I just want to interject and point out how she has set herself up for failure here, because she is, first of all, agreed to move far away for his kids, and then she's put herself in a situation where she is the one at home all the time because she works from home. Therefore, she is much more available to the children, whereas he is commuting far for work. So right away, we're ending up in a situation where you can see where this would be going. But let's move on. We have 50-50 custody of his kids. During the school year, we never have the kids on Monday or Tuesday nights. My husband enjoys playing in low-stakes bar poker games, so he generally does this on Mondays and Tuesdays. It's a very long drive to the venue where he plays, so he stays with friends near our old house for those nights and doesn't come home. Not my favorite arrangement, but I go out of my way to ensure he feels like he has autonomy to enjoy his hobbies. And I want to highlight this part as well. I will come back to it in a moment. Something he definitely didn't have with marriage number 1. Okay, hold that thought because I have things to say about that. But I digress. The issues have come up with regards to our summer custody schedule, which switches to 1 week on, 1 week off. It recently came out in conversation that he expected to still play his poker game on Tuesday nights during the summer and that he was fully planning on staying with his friends and not coming home on those nights. It has always been our understanding and agreement that he would be home any nights we had the boys here. When I brought this up, he told me he didn't think it was a big deal to not be home 1 night a week and expect me to handle everything on those nights. I'm sure he doesn't think it's a big deal because he's not the one handling it. I am super uncomfortable being here with them alone. They make me anxious. I hate when they fight, and I don't think it's my place as a step-parent to discipline them. If they were kids who just read books and sat in silence all night, I might feel differently. Oh, so you mean if they were like fictional children? And this is why I wanted to highlight that she doesn't have kids, because any mom will tell you that there is no such thing as a teenager who will just sit there in silence and read. In fact, if things get too quiet, that's when you start to worry. Like, what are they up to? But anyway, I'll come back to that. The OP goes on to say, but there's always a greater than 0% chance that someone is literally throwing punches, and I have no interest in being solely in charge of that situation. I already am the default parent for laundry, school pickup, scheduling meals, and the primary caretaker anytime during school breaks since I work from home. Yeah, exactly what I said. I have clearly communicated to my husband how I feel about being alone with them, so he is aware. Beyond how it impacts me, I don't think it's a great example for the kids either. It's not like my husband is on work trips. It's like, hey, Dad would rather play poker than be here with you. I just feel like part of being a parent is you have to plan your life around kid stuff. My husband already has it easier than most because of the joint custody and the fact that I am happy to sacrifice some of the few days we have alone for the two of us so that he can pursue his hobby. So serve it to me straight. Am I the a-hole here? My husband is making me feel like I am, but I just feel like this is me making a reasonable ask and trying to set a legitimate boundary. And the long and short of it is absolutely not. She is not the a-hole here, but you knew that already. This is just another great example of a man looking to the closest woman available to do the work of parenting his children. And I know that that sounds harsh and that I'm making a huge generalization, but I just see this play out over and over and over again. I see so many situations where men want to have 50-50 custody on paper, but in reality, the only way that they can make that work is because they have a new mommy in the picture, another woman who will basically step in and do, like she is doing, pick the kids up from school and make their lunches and do their laundry and, be around on school holidays so that he doesn't have to take time off work or sacrifice anything in his life to make it work. And this is the real problem with dating men who have children. And I'm just going to give it to you straight, like she says. If you are going to date a dad, then assume that this is going to be the reality for you. Assume that you will be leaned upon to do things, particularly if you set yourself up in a situation where you are clearly more available. If that does not sound like something that you want, then once again, I would caution you against proceeding in a relationship with a single dad. Do not believe him when he tells you that it won't be like this and that of course he'll do this and of course he'll do that and of course, they're his kids and he's going to be the primary parent, because I rarely see that actually transpire in reality. Because in reality, what will happen is life will get in the way. And it will definitely put a strain on your relationship if you're constantly having to set boundaries like this to say, hey, no, you can't work late all the time and expect me to just be there for the kids. No, you can't go and have your poker nights every week and expect me to just pick up the slack. No, I don't agree to pick the kids up from school every day or pack their lunches or do this or do that. Because ultimately, all that will do is breed a lot of resentment. Either he will be making all kinds of sacrifices and doing the work that he should be doing, but in reality, he'll feel like he is doing way more work and you're not willing to do any work, which is fair because they're his kids. But I'm telling you that he won't see it like that. He'll see it like you're leaving him to do everything and you're doing nothing. And conversely, if you then help out, as he would want, then you will resent him for laying this responsibility on your shoulders when it really shouldn't be your responsibility. Now, I want to touch on that point that I asked you to hold in your mind. The one where she says that she likes to ensure that he is able to pursue his hobbies because apparently his ex-wife never did. And this is another thing that I want to caution you about. And this is more of a divorced man in general. Anytime a man tells you his ex was, a gold digger, or his ex never let him pursue his hobbies, or his ex was controlling, or she was angry, or she was this, or she was that, I want you to proceed with caution. Most of the time, what that man is actually saying is that he does not want you to be this way. He wants you to prove to him that you're not a gold digger, that you're a cool girl, or that you'll let him play his poker games or get away with whatever nonsense his ex didn't let him get away with. Because think about it. This man had 2 young boys. Of course, his wife was going to have a problem with him disappearing for days on end to play poker. That's not being controlling. That's just being reasonable. And right away, that should have set off red flags in the OP's mind. And I want you to recognize that because I want you to be able to recognize those red flags if you see them. Because right away, he was basically telling her exactly how it was going to be. He was telling her that he was looking for a partner who would allow him to prioritize himself and his hobbies and who would just be there to pick up the slack. So understand how to decode those types of messages so that you can avoid being in that situation yourself. If you do not want to be that person, then again, do not date this man. Now, that being said, I want to end on a positive note and to say that I have seen a lot of, let's say, divorced people in general repartner and have happy relationships. And not all step parent situations are negative. A lot of times they can be really positive. But in order for those relationships to work, it is my view that the people entering into those relationships need to know what it is that they're signing up for. So if you as a woman are considering dating a man who has kids, understand what it is that your life will look like. Understand that it is very likely that in order for the relationship to work, you will have to participate in some of those parenting responsibilities. And if that's not something you're comfortable with, then again, I repeat, don't date single dads. There are plenty of women out there who do actually embrace being a stepmother and do want to be able to, let's say, be a part-time mom to kids that aren't biologically theirs. And kudos to them for that. There are many great stepmothers and stepfathers as well. But what makes them great is that they have embraced that role. They went into it knowing what they were signing up for and knowing that that is what they wanted for various reasons, whether it's because they don't want to have their own biological children, or whether it's because they already have biological children and they're embracing a blended or expanded family. Either way, the common denominator is that they want to do it and that they're doing it happily and willingly. But too often I see situations where people have gone in blind, particularly women and particularly women who don't have children, because they don't know what it's like to have children and how children will impact your day-to-day life in so many different ways. So they had very potentially unrealistic expectations of what life would be like dating a man who already had children. And like in this last story, the woman has this idea of like, well, if these kids were like perfectly behaved, quiet children who just sat there and did nothing, then it would be fine. And like I said, those children don't exist. So just assume that you're going to have behavioral problems. You're going to have, a lot of rowdy, high energy, noisy. Kids are chaotic. They create mess and noise, and they have behavioral problems and needs and all kinds of things that you have to prioritize because they're children and they can't look after themselves and they need an adult to look after them. So if you're not prepared to be that adult, then I think it's really important to recognize that and not to get involved, because not only is it not fair to you, it isn't fair to the children. Like in the first story, who will then bond with you and then potentially lose you as an important person in their life. So please proceed with caution and know what you're getting into. And if you are going to do it, then do it wholeheartedly or don't do it at all. So that's all I have for you today. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this topic. Have you ever dated a single dad? Are you a single dad? What has your experience been? I always love hearing from you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And in the meantime, take care and have a beautiful day wherever you are in this crazy world. Bye for now.